Zambia. Good evening, Africa, and warm welcome to the bigger program right on KBN TV from Zambia's capital city, Lusaka, with me, Innocent Piri. Now, with only 4 months remaining before Zambia goes to the polls to elect a new set of leaders in the 2026 general elections, these are the leaders who preside over the affairs of the country up to 2031. The leaders to be elected are presidential, mayoral, parliamentary, as well as ward level. The ruling United Party for National Development, UPND, has so far shown its stamina through its ongoing members it is receiving from opposition as a sign of popularity, while the opposition political parties in Zambia seem to be also very consistent on matters of intra-party fights. A fortnight ago, the Zambia We Want, led by its veteran politician in Honorable Hon Simbao, who is also former Sengahill Member of Parliament, was also in the media making news in a negative manner. The party decided to recall and subsequently expel its 4 elected leaders, namely Honorable Hon Simbao and 3 others, among them Honorable Mahabi Lungu, the Secretary General, National Chairperson Dr. Auxilia Ponga, for alleged making unilateral decisions. Mr. Mahabi Lungu is my guest on the program, appearing on the bigger program, discussing quite a number of issues. He joins me on set. Honorable SG, welcome and good evening to you.
Thank you for welcoming me, IP. Good evening to you, and may I also say good evening to the viewers. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. I don't know which title now I should address you. Is it SG, former SG? Which one is correct?
I think that I can see that you have our constitution, which I found you had. I also brought my constitution here. Right. I think that as we discuss, we will allow the constitution to guide us. And I think that both you as well as the viewers can make the determination in accordance with the constitution we have as to what you can call me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Of course, he is my guest on the program for the next 1 hour, 30 minutes. And later on, we shall allow you to phone in and give your contribution as well as questions, or it could be clarification on the matters that you may want to be clarified by Honorable Mahabi Lungu, coming from the Zambia We Want. The question to you, Honorable Lungu, is why is the Zambia We Want in this confusion? Why has it embroiled itself in this fiasco? What is the problem?
Yeah, well, I think that I can go to the genesis of it, but if you permit me to just make 1 or 2 corrections over your intro. Yes.
Go ahead.
You had indicated that the Zambia We Want is led by Honorable Hon Simbao. I just wanted to correct that the Zambia We Want is not led by President Simbao.
Right.
The Zambia We Want is led by Dr. Ponga, Dr. Auxilia Ponga. That is what our constitution says. And that is who chairs the meetings of the NLC. Right. And she's the head of the party. Dr. Hon Simbao is our presidential candidate, our president, and the flag bearer. And as you recall, many times ago when I came here earlier, we had created this demarcation. So I thought that I should just make that clarification. You also said that, well, we are making news, obviously. Right. So you asked me what is happening. And
why making news or headlines in the negative?
Well, as I have begun many shows who have invited me to explain this matter, I have always said that, can I pose 3 rhetorical questions before I go to your answer? Yeah. And these are just 3, and I wanted to ask you, as well as the viewers, to keep these questions at the back of their minds as we discuss this matter. Right. Yeah, so the first question is really, why has this action that has been taken by some of our colleagues in the NLC has been taken at this particular moment. As you know, some 3 weeks ago, we held a convention under the auspices of the Council of Elders. And at that convention, there were 7 political parties, and there were an election, and Hon Simbao won as a flag bearer for the We Are One Zambia Alliance as a flag bearer, and I won as Secretary General for the Alliance. A week after that, our colleagues started to plan this insurrection, if you want to say it, in order to sign petitions illegally without outside the ambit of the Constitution. On Thursday last week, we held an inaugural press conference as WUNZA for the Fourth Republic, where there was an official unveiling of Hon Simbao and additional members of the team. And exactly the next day, our colleagues released this and circulated the letter very widely. So the question I ask, and I want to keep you at the back of your mind, maybe we can get it at it later,
right,
is why at this particular time? Is this a coincidence, or is there a force behind it? Is there an objective? So that's the first question.
Right.
The second question, which I would request the viewers to consider as we discuss, is in whose interest is this particular issue being raised? According to them, some of my colleagues, and I don't deny them, some of my colleagues, according to them, they have terminated the membership of Hon Simbao, Dr. Auxilia Ponga, and myself. And as you put it, we are barely 6 weeks from Parliament being dissolved. Even if they had the authority to do so, and you will see when we look at the Constitution that there's absolute no authority for it, the question nevertheless would be, in whose interest are they doing it for? We have had an election in Zambia we won since October for 6 months now. We have been trying to push together together a team, and 6 weeks before an election, they say they fired all of us. So, and they would not, from the constitutional point of view, be able to replace us. So whose interest is it? Is it in the interest of the Zambia we want? Is it in the interest of these particular individual members who signed the petition? Or is it in the interest of someone behind the veil? I think that is very important, and I think we have to consider that question. The last question I think that we have to consider in this matter, could it be that this salvo which they have fired is not actually intended to hit the Zambia we want? Could it be that the objective of this thing is the We Are One Zambia Alliance? Given the fact that in the executive, the 4 executive members that were elected at the conference, that, as I said earlier, that Dr. Simbao won the presidential flag bearer, and I won as Secretary General.
Yeah.
So trying to destabilize the Zambia we want is in effect trying to destabilize the alliance. So can we ask the question again, is this coincidental, or is it planned? Is it benefiting someone? So I thought that those questions are very important for the viewers to keep at the back of their mind as we discuss. So now I'll go to your question.
Yeah.
Okay. What is happening? And I can say to you from the get-go that all of these issues have emanated from the elections that we had as a Zambia we want 6 months ago. If you recall that we had elections in the Zambia we want, and the last day of those elections was on October the 3rd, in which there were 2 final candidates, because no one had managed to reach 50+1 in the first round. It was Honorable Ernest Mwansa and Honorable Hon Simbao. And in that runoff, Honorable Hon Simbao emerged victorious. Okay, now, I also emerged victorious, defeating Mr. Harrington Kanema, who is spearheading this ostensibly, but there is Mr. Ernest Mwansa behind it, and I will discuss about that a little bit earlier. And what happened is that after the elections of October the 3rd, okay, 2 weeks later, we called for a National Leadership Council. And at that National Leadership Council, almost, I would say 90% of these people who have signed this petition did not come to that National Leadership Council. And since then, we have held 4 National Leadership Councils. And more than 80% of those people who signed this Leadership Council have never attended any of those National Leadership Council. This is the council that manages the party on a day-to-day basis between conventions. So it's the most senior organ apart from the Congress. And a significant number of them, more than 50% of them, not even so much as an apology. Okay? The constitution of our party, and we can go to it if we have time to find it, says that if you miss 3 consecutive meetings of the National Leadership Council without an apology, you cease to be a member of the National Leadership Council. I have taken no steps as the Secretary General to discipline them, because I have been in instances within the MMD and in UNIP when after elections people are aggrieved, some of them are very angry because they've been lied to by people that they are going to be voted for, or just whatever. And I wanted to give them time to heal, and this was the general feeling among all of the membership of the NLC, that we needed to give them time to heal. So at the first meeting, and I think this is very important, at the first meeting, Mr. Kanema came, and he was one of the few. I think there were from there. I think that there are maybe three or so who came to those meetings, and Mr. Kanema brought a grievance regarding the elections that had been conducted 2.5 weeks earlier, and he wanted those grievances to be addressed, and they were put on the agenda. And we began to discuss those grievances. We can discuss what those grievances were later. We began to discuss those grievances. And as we discussed those grievances, the greater majority of the members of the NLC were of the view that the grievances which he was putting on the table were not legitimate.
Which ones were those? Just for the sake of the viewers, so we don't leave the viewers behind.
I will come to it.
What were the issues?
Okay. Yeah. If you give me just a moment, I will come to the issues.
Right.
Yeah. So the majority of his colleagues told him that those grievances were illegitimate, they were not constitutional, etc., etc. And as we debated this matter, and I think him seeing that the majority of his colleagues were completely of a different view, he became so angry and stormed out of the meeting, the first meeting we had. And before he left, he issued a threat and a proclamation. And the threat was, as long as these grievances, my grievances, he didn't say he was writing on behalf of any other person. He wrote the grievances as him, as vice chair. He says, if you do not address these grievances, we, now this is now not I, we, I, Harrington Kanema, as the former Secretary General of the Zambia we won, and Ernest Bwansa, the former president of the NL, have vowed that we will never allow for a name change at the Registrar of Society. We will not facilitate, and we will do everything possible to ensure that there is never a change of names at the Registrar of Society. I can tell you, IP, till today, the names that are at the Registrar of Societies today is Ernest Mwansa, Harrington Kanema, and all of the previous names who lost the positions for which they should be at the Registrar of Society. And we have failed to change these names because there was a vow and a promise that they will never allow. So I wanted to say that so that the viewers understand what we've been dealing with. And in the last 6 months, we have undertaken so many initiatives to try and see whether we can come to a reasonable resolution with our colleagues so that we do the appropriate thing and change the names at the Registrar of Society. So let me do. So now I can go to the grievances, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. So there were 2 basic grievances, primary grievances.
Right.
He wrote a letter by himself, and the 2 grievances. The first one was that Kapembwa Simbao was not the legitimately elected president because in the second round, he failed to get 50+1. That was his first grievance.
Right.
Okay? And as I said, colleagues within the NLC said to him that both according to our constitution and the common practice everywhere else in the world, there is no requirement for a 50+1 in the second round. The 50+1 is only required in the first round when there is more than 2 candidates. Because obviously immediately you get to 3 or 4, there is a possibility that no one will be able to get 50+1. Okay? But when the issue is now limited to 2 people, there are only 2 people. So clearly, the chances of somebody reaching the 50+1 is very high, maybe 99%. It's possible that you can have a tie, but it's very high that you can get 50+1. So there is no requirement in our constitution, and we can read it. And as I said, also in the world, he continued to argue, and his bone of his contention was that the manner in which you calculate the 50+1 must include rejected ballots. Are you following me? Eh? And colleagues said, but Wakanem, where in the world do you include rejected ballots? Why are they called rejected? In our circumstances in this country, they are called invalid votes. So you have got you've got a stratification where there is total registered votes, total votes cast, total valid votes, total rejected votes, etc., etc. You cannot use rejected votes as a denominator in as part of the denominator in calculating a 51. He was told this. He refused. He refused on whatever. Okay, we moved on. The second grievance that he has was that Dr. Ponga, the head of the party, who had won the position of chair, should not have stood for the position of chair. Because according to him, there was a decision taken by us as a NLC before we dissolved ourselves and gave the Electoral Commission, appointed by the Law Association of Zambia, to discharge the duties of electing all of us. According to him, we had made a decision that anyone who stands for president cannot stand for the chair. As you know, Dr. Ponga was one of the candidates in the first round. She lost and then applied for chairmanship, which she won. She defeated Honorable Bet Mushala, okay, who had applied, and she won. She convincingly won. So his argument was that Dr. Ponga should not have been a candidate for that election. Now, again, his colleagues argued, we never took such a decision. And he insisted that we did. Again, when it was quite evident to him that the majority of his colleagues, and this was the first meeting which had reached a quorum, okay? When it was evident to him that the majority of his colleagues were in disagreement with what he was saying, he then said, okay, I can show you the minutes, okay? So one of the members asked, Mr. Kanema, the meeting in which you are quoting was the last meeting, which we dissolved and then gave it to the Electoral Commission to take over. We have all said to you that we don't recall this. And let us assume that it was discussed and it was the way it is. The procedure that governs the rules of minutes is that when you write your minutes, the minutes are circulated for corrections by anybody. When you meet at the sixth meeting, you go over the minutes of the previous meeting and you make correction. And once you make those corrections, then there is a proposer to propose whether this is a correct record of minutes, and there's a seconder. Then they become, and then they are signed. And so the question from one of the members was, at what point after we dissolved did these minutes circulate to the members of the NLC? At what point did we sit to look over this meter to agree on whether this was the substance of the discussion? And who approved these minutes? It is at that point that our vice chair and the former secretary general became so livid that he stormed out of the meeting and he said, never will we allow a change of name. So those are the grievances. Now, as I said, because of this, we have been trying to resolve and have a discussion with our colleagues so that we can resolve this matter. But as I said to you earlier, the list of those people who signed, I can convincingly say to you that a great majority of those have not been participating members of the party. They made a resolution after the NS Mwanza lost that they will make sure that they do everything possible to make the governance of the party impossible. And to the extent that they agreed that they would always try to ensure that they stay away from the meeting so that we fail to make quorum. The quorum, according to our constitution, is 50% of the elected members of the NLC. And we have always met the quorum. In fact, significantly surpassed the quorum. I can tell you that if we call a meeting tomorrow, we will meet the quorum. Those individuals, by and large, have stayed away. And so even the complaint to say that they have not been consulted on matters to do with the alliance is unfortunately untrue. We have never removed them from the WhatsApp group, which all of them are there. And all the information regarding what is going on in the party, even though we know that some of them have already moved on to other political parties, we've kept them there because they've never written that they've left. Okay, we know some of them are already operating in another political party, and in the spirit of trying to reconcile everyone, we have kept him there. And all of the meetings that I held, they are always invited. Some of them, about 4 of them, will give apologies, but apologies continuously, never attending a meeting. I have called some of them to try and meet them. They would say, okay, we will meet you at Manda Hill. The day of the meeting, I'll get a call. No, I can't make it because I've got something else. So what are we supposed to do? What is Simbao supposed to do? And so this is the genesis of it. So I'm very sorry to say that the majority of our colleagues, I think that they're being unfair on those of us who won the elections. And I have always said, my brother, that one of the biggest difficulties we have in this country is people claiming to believe in something and not believing in it when it doesn't suit them. Elections in this country are very emotive. They're very hard. And when you lose an election, we go through bad things. And I have said, I gave an example of Simbao. You know, one of the reasons why I have supported Simbao over this matter is because he's a very genteel man. You may not know, but you know, I took over as Secretary General of the MMD. Just when we lost office as MMD, I took over the Secretary General of the MMD from Kapembwa Simbao. And not through him giving me. We had an electoral contest. Because if you recall when Bowman Lusambo, they threw out Major Kachingwa, Simbao was the one who was made to be Secretary General. I believe it was in an interim. I stand to be corrected.
Interim, yes.
Yeah. Later on, it was decided that we should have elections. And I was asked by my colleagues to put my name forward. And there were a lot of mitigating circumstances. So I won't tell the whole story. At some point, I can tell you the story, but there's the point I'm getting at. So I was put forward as a candidate. So the competition was between me and my president now, Honorable Simbao, for the competition for the MMD. And there were some people who campaigned very hard for Dr. Simbao. And there are people who campaigned for me. And among the people who campaigned very hard for Simbao was Dora Silia, my sister, Dora Silia, and the Honorable Lucky Mulusa. Okay? And eventually I won. Okay? Now, 2 things happened within a period of a month. Okay? A month later, there was a requirement, an issue that had to be done, which required for me to call the Parliamentary Liaison Committee. We had 55 members of parliament at the time, and including my dad, who was then Deputy Speaker.
Yeah.
Okay? So I called the meeting of the Parliamentary Liaison Committee, and the majority of members of parliament came. the first person who I found in the room, when I went in the room at our at the MMD Secretariat, the first to arrive was Honorable Hon Simbao, the man who I had defeated less than a month ago. And as I entered there, I thought, well, usually in Zambia, people get angry at each other perpetually for this. And that maybe, first of all, I didn't expect him to come. I thought that he was still in that period of mourning. And I found the man there. And so I went to him cautiously. And he quickly came to me, my brother. And we started. I was stunned at the level of maturity of this man. Eventually, all the other people came to the meeting we had. Never had I felt any form of injury against me or that he didn't because I want nothing. That is a mature person. Okay? Right. Not this sort of behavior. Let me just conclude it there, then you can ask.
I want to throw in a few questions after this foundation.
Okay, go ahead. Good. Yeah. I'm saying this because I think it's important for Zambia. You know, we seem not to have accepted that democracy means there are winners and losers. And usually, people who lose always try to find every justification not to allow their colleagues who have won to move forward. So I was saying, Lucky Mulusa, who had decampaigned me, within a month, there was a by-election in Solwezi, okay? And then we started to decide who are we going to, Solwezi Central. And the name of Lucky came up. And when people brought it to me, they thought I would be very hostile because Lucky had decampaigned me or had campaigned against me. And I said, no, I think he's the best candidate. When Lucky sought for an appointment, he sought it after he had to find out whether I would be friendly. And when he finally came to me, I said, my brother, I think that you are the best candidate. I will support this for you. But as you know, in the MMD, we have a selection process. And I worked hard to ensure that Lucky Mulusa was selected. And when we had the elections, I went to Solwezi. For 3 weeks, I camped with Lucky. You can ask Lucky Mulusa. To campaign. This is a gentleman who was not against. I understood that what we were doing was an electoral process. Right. And Lucky and Dora were supporting my brother. There's nothing wrong with that. There may have been a reason why they didn't support me. And it may not have been a bad reason. And others supported me. So that is a degree of maturity that when we started the Zambia we want, we had an ideal, an understanding of an organization that operates with good people within the constitutional framework. What Honorable Mwansa and Kanema and some of our colleagues are doing under the pretext that we have not consulted them over is very wrong. In my view, it's very immature and it is deceptive. And I hold those views very strongly. And we can go on as you ask other
and
questions.
And how possible that, my question is that, how possible, maybe let me begin from somewhere else before I come to this.
Yeah.
When you came together as the Zambia we want, I mean, I remember very well at the time when you are mobilizing, leading to the formation of this political party. It was a group of eminent people.
That is right.
Men and women with a high caliber.
That is right.
And even at a time when you are launching this political party, you told Zambians that what we are bringing to you is a different team, different crop of leaders altogether.
That is right.
Who will be different from the rest.
That is right.
The Zambia we want.
That is right.
Now, we are talking about less than 3 years of the political party being in existence.
Yes.
We begin to see this kind of behavior coming from elderly men and women at your level. People have been in government, some of you. You've learned from your mistakes. You've also learned from your successes. You come back to the Zambian people 4 months before the general election with a behavior which seemed to be unacceptable to the political landscape.
Yes.
The question is, if you can't deliver the Zambia we want on paper, how possible that if elected into office tomorrow, you give the populace or the general population of Zambia the Zambia we want? If you can't govern yourselves.
Yes. Innocent, your question is very valid. But I think in the defense of Honorable Simbao, it is not Honorable Simbao who has started this. In the defense of Dr. Ponga and myself, we are not the ones who have started this. I've just told you that some of these problems started after the election, and you have never heard any of us discuss these matters in the public. We have tried to resolve these matters within. Now, let me take you to the Constitution. First of all, if I show the viewers this Constitution, it says here, the transformation agenda. We want it to be different.
Correct.
And so it is a shock to me that my colleagues who are signatories of this Constitution, which we all approved, are behaving the way they are. And doing things which are completely contrary to the Constitution, which we said we would be the Zambia we want to build for our children. So let me go and I want you to follow because I want to make a comment. You can go to page 68.
Right.
Okay, go to page 68. And this is chapter 5. It's talking about the Board of Trustees and Party Stewards Committee. We had said to ourselves that given the experience of other political parties, when disputes arise in a political party, if you bring those disputes to the public, one, and if you take you lose control. If you take immediately you have got a grievance, you take it to the courts, you will lose control. So we made provisions about arbitration. And one of those provisions is this. It's called the Board of Trustees and Party Stewards Committee. Now, and I will read you just a few of what it says. Number 1, it says, so this is 71.1. The Board of Trustees shall exercise all such fiduciary functions of the party and any other such functions delegated to it by the National Leadership Council and or National Congress. Meaning, if there is a problem within us, we, the National Executive, then meet and say we are referring this to the Board of Trustees. Number 3, any leadership dispute which makes running of the party unattainable in any form shall be considered a constitutional crisis. Number 3, and I'll stop. Number 4, and I'll stop there. Okay. In the event that a constitutional crisis occurs in the party subject of the dispute shall not take out legal action in the course of law, but shall escalate the dispute to the Board of Trustees through the Secretary General, through me. Okay? Now, I read this because the understanding of what we were doing here was that if there are dispute, we would resolve them internally. And as I've pointed out to you, these issues which started after the elections, Dr. Ponga, myself, my deputy, Madam Ruth Chikasa, Faustina Sinyangwe, Ryuj, all of us who have been attending have made an attempt to be able to resolve this internally. And we've never leaked it. Okay? 6 months later, our colleagues who have a grievance did not bring this matter to us, but they leaked it. So I have been forced to ensure that I correct the matter. I am not happy that I'm sitting here, but I understand the realities of politics because I've been in it long enough.
But here you seem to be conflicted. I mean, you are a suspect. The members, the general membership. I mean, not the general membership, but the members who are aggrieved right now. They seem to not to be happy with you as the SG, a person who should have maybe taken care of their concerns. So they have got issues with you. They seem to have issues with the national chairperson and also the presidential candidate in Honorable Hon Simbao. The top leaders, they are a problem. They have been found wanting. How do you expect these members to come to you? Who is
But it's not to come to me. It is to come to the
office.
NLC, the National Leadership Council. And this is what these provisions are saying. And even if they had a grievance with me, I am not the final arbiter. What I will be doing is that if I received a request that a National Leadership Council should be called, then I would go to the National Leadership Council and consult to say we must call it. That was never done. Nobody requested for such a meeting. And you have to follow the procedures according to your own constitution. This was, as I said, approved by all of us, including them. So it is not saying bring it to the SG. It's saying take it to the National Leadership Council. Then through the SG we just submit it. And then the National Leadership Council, if they feel that there's a dispute, they escalate this matter to the Board of Trustees. That was never done. And that's what I'm saying. We can go further. Let me go further. Let us look at Article 43. Okay, Article 43, which is on page 44, I believe. Yeah, you can go to page 44. Okay, there is procedure for removal of president. Now, when they issued the letter they did, it was not a procedural letter. Okay?
Right.
It is a letter of termination. Okay? That's what it is. It's not a procedure. It is a letter of termination. And as I said to you, if you read at every clause of this constitution, there is nowhere where the chairman, the head of the party, can be removed by a petition like this. Nowhere. You will not find it. There is nowhere in this petition where the SG can be removed by a petition like this. It is not provided for in the constitution because the party is headed by the chair who was elected, and the chief executive is the SG, which is myself, who was elected. An elected member can just not be removed by a termination of 6 members. That's not how you run a society. But it provides for the removal of the president. Okay? And you know why? Because as I explained to you when I was correcting you, the president for us is not head of the party. He's a flag bearer. So we put in issues in here to ensure that if we are dissatisfied for some reason, that there is a process of removal. And it is a process. It's just not people sitting on the corner and signing out a petition. Let me read you the keywords.
Yes.
Okay? 1, this is procedure for removal of the president. 43.1, removal of the president shall be commenced. Okay? Commenced by a petition signed by at least 50% of the National Leadership Council members and presented to the chairperson. Okay?
In this
you understand?
case, Dr. Ponga.
Dr. Ponga, who, as I said, there is no provision
who is not in good standing with those members.
No, but look, whether someone is not in good standing or not, they're the head of the party. I mean, if I have a problem with my headmaster and he's not standing, there is a way in which the headmaster is removed.
But no. But even in court, I mean, if you are not happy with this particular judge, you can't still go and appear before that judge whom you suspect that this judge is compromised.
Okay.
You have to recuse yourself. You write to the judge, can you recuse yourself?
Precisely. This is what I'm saying.
For the sake of transparency.
But you're agreeing with me. If you have got a problem with a judge, you don't go stand outside the court and sign a letter to yourself and say we've removed the judge. No, you don't do that. That is not how society operates. Do you agree with me? That there is a process to it. If you have a grievance against a judge, you appear to that same judge and say, the lawyer goes to there and says, for this particular reason, I think that you should recuse yourself. You don't go, or you write the lawyer is asked to write some process that you follow the process. Okay? Now, as I said, this is a constitution. We are not a Kantemba party, my brother. You've said that the people who have served in the Zambia we want are people who were directors, PSs, ministers, diplomats, and so on. So we are not people who have had no thing. And all of us should be able to agree. So I'm reading you the provisions of the Constitution. If you are saying to me that even in the normal ordinance, you can throw away the Constitution of Zambia and do what you want, then what sort of anarchy are we going to have? Okay? So here it is, very clear. 50% of the National Leadership Council presents a petition to the chairperson. And what does the chairperson do? Article 2. The petition should clearly specify the allegation leveled against the president and must be served on the president within 3 days from the date that the petition is presented to the chairperson. So the chairperson receives, assesses whether there is validity in this thing, and if the chairperson says that there is validity, it is given to the president. To do what? The rules of natural justice demand that a person who you've accused is given an opportunity to do what? To defend themselves. There is nowhere in the world where you can just convict someone without due process.
And you were not given chance yourselves to exculpate yourselves or maybe to defend yourselves.
There was never a process in which this matter was brought to the NLC for termination or given to the chair. Never. Because they knew if it was, it would have failed. Not because the chairperson is egregious to them. Because I've told you, she won an election which they said was an issue from day one. Okay, but let me just finish some of these
quickly
provisions.
Finish. I want us to manage our time.
Okay, that is fine.
Yeah.
Okay, the president shall answer in writing to the petition within 10 days of the receipt of the motion. Okay, 4. The chairperson shall then be obliged to call for a meeting of the National Leadership Council to discuss the matter within 14 days of receipt of the petition, and the National Leadership Council shall be convened within 21 days from the date of the chairperson of that meeting. Lastly, and it goes on, but I want you to understand, and I'll read this slowly. At the close of deliberations, the National Leaders Council members shall vote by secret ballot on the motion to remove the president, and the motion will be passed only if 2/3 of the members vote in favor of removing the president. Okay? You cannot get more clearer than that. Now, all the things I'm saying to you, my brother. One, there was no petition presented to first of all, there was no meeting called of the NLC. If they did call such a meeting, let them give us who called the meeting, okay, who chaired the meeting, and they should give us a minute of those meetings so that we can determine whether it is within the ambit of the law. Secondly, okay, there was never any discussion, okay, there was never Simbao or myself or the chair were never called for the due process of the law, and there was never any vote. So in whose right mind can anyone sit there and say, because me, Mahabi Lungu, because I'm a citizen of Zambia, I collect 2 petitions of 20 people and say that we've removed the president of the republic? In whose world are you living in, if that is what you're going to do? And this, by Ernest Mwansa, is a lawyer, by the way, okay? And so on. And some of these are members who served in cabinet. So, categorically, there has been no removal of the SG. There has been no removal of the president. There has been no removal of the chairperson. Not according to me, according to this, which was approved by all of those people who signed that petition. That is how it is governed.
How possible that people like Honorable Ernest Mwansa, a man who has been a lawmaker before, he can sink so low to the point of, trying to commit what I may call illegalities.
You can ask him.
I need to ask you, because you're the one accusing him that he's part of this team, which unfairly expelled yourselves, and you think he's part of it.
They have not expelled ourselves, first of all, IP. They have signed a petition, which, as I'm telling you, is an illegality.
Yeah, so how possible that the people like Honorable Ernest Mwansa, a person who even contested the presidency, can now turn around and become, turn himself into a different
let me tell you another story. And I'm doing this not because I'm happy to do it. I'm doing this in order to clarify. And I am so convinced and convicted of what I'm saying is correct. I can tell you that you can go ask for Ernest Mwansa and Harrington Kanema. In I believe it was in February or even January, when we needed to do our annual returns by the Registrar of Society, I went to Mr. Kanema, okay, to have a discussion with him, because we needed to do those annual returns. Even if they had refused to change the name of registration, you couldn't let the party die by not doing annual returns. He himself, Kanema, said to me, no, I'm prepared to do the annual returns and we can solve these other issues later. He then proposed that there should be a meeting between Dr. Ponga, President Simbao, myself, on one side, and Ernest Mwansa, himself, and Babet Michal. And we agreed to it. We had a meeting at the office of Ernest Mwansa about a week later after that agreement, okay? In his boardroom. Babet Michal did not come. We started to debate to see whether we can resolve these matters. It became an impossible meeting. At one point, where Ernest asked us if we have refused to get you to change the names because of grievances, how does that affect the operations of the party? That's what he told us. Dr. Ponga answered him, but by Ernest, we had an election and a convention, and there were people who won. It is now the right thing to do for us to change the names at the register. How can you ask me a question that, how does it affect? No, we are not going to change. Then I asked him, I said, my older brother, as of today, okay, the only person who has written a grievance on the matters which we are raised here is Mr. Harrington Kanema. It is not you or any of the other members who have not been coming to the meetings. Only Mr. Harrington Kanema. And Mr. Kanema did not write a letter to say he was writing on behalf of all of you. He wrote a letter on his own behalf. So as far as I am concerned, and all of us here that are concerned, you, Mr. Enes Mwanza, have no grievance. You have verbalized it in a meeting before. You have also verbalized here. You have not written any meeting. No, but I agree with what Kanema is saying. So I said to him, okay, if that is the case, can you please also put it in writing so that we can deal with it with the way we dealt with Mr. Kanema's case. He says, I will never write in a meeting. I said, sir, how are you expecting us to deal with this? By you verbalizing. Which organization operates on verbalization? Okay, since you have refused to write, and I'm concluding, since you have refused to write, I will write you a letter requesting for you to help us change the office bearer, and if you refuse, give us a reason why you are refusing. I'll never read your letter. I tell you, my brother, call him and ask him whether what I'm saying is a lie. I was exasperated. All of us here was exasperated. But Simbao tried to get him to see something. The meeting ended very badly. You know, me, I lost my temper because at one point I couldn't hold my temper because I thought that we were trying to do everything possible to be reasonable. And
clearly, Honorable SG, you duped Zambians. You lied to the people of Zambia when you are launching this political party. When you stood publicly and assured the people of Zambia that we are a different team, we're a different group of men and women who are eminent. You lied, because what I'm sensing here, based on your conversation, is we're dealing with a group of men and women who are elderly men and women who are quite disorganized.
But
you know, that's what it appears.
IP. Again, I want us to be very fair here. Really, we must be very fair. Please let us not falsify false equivalence. I am not an aggressor here. I won an election. Okay? Dr. Simbao is not an aggressor here. Neither is Dr. Ponga. You can't equate a person who won as being untruthful. I mean, I have said to you before, if a man goes and rapes a girl, are you going to blame the girl for the rape? Even those who say, oh no, the girl didn't dress properly, it's her fault. It's not being fair. You can't tell me that what you are saying to me is a fair assessment of the issue. Okay? And I've also told you...
You are failing to agree. I mean...
No, I am not agreeing. Yes. I hope that... so you want me to agree to something. What is my role in this? To try to resolve the issue? Is my role in which you are saying I lied to the Zambian people? Trying to defend the Constitution? I'm pointing to the constitutional issues here. Is that a lie for me to lie to the Zambian people? That's why I brought it. How can you say
Zambians are putting you, all of you, in the same basket, in the same group, and they are seeing a group of men and women, actually elderly men and women, who are failing to agree, and that's a confusion I'm talking about.
No.
So you cannot all run away from that, because the public statement was that you are bringing a different touch to the political space in Zambia. Now, let me justify this further, Honorable SG.
Yeah.
In your preamble, you did mention that each time you called for a meeting, in 3 or 4 occasions, some of these individuals, they did not appear.
Majority of them.
The majority of them missed out the meeting.
Yes.
And you mentioned to me that you but you did not act aggressively on them based on what the Constitution says, because you wanted to handle this issue from the moral aspect. On, I think on the side that maybe people are still mourning after losing the election here and there. We give them time, maybe they might accept at some point. Don't you think that was the mistake you made? Because you don't act based on how you feel or how you perceive things. The Constitution here says if you miss a meeting, a National Leadership Council meeting for 3 or 4 times, then you ceased of being a member. But you did not act based on that. And according to you, your justification is that you wanted to give chance to your colleagues to maybe heal and realize that they're supposed to move on now. Don't you think you breached your own constitution by not acting, and you wanted to deal with matters based on feelings at that level? Hence, bleeding maybe a larger problem.
You know, the law that we have, every law in any country is written by men, okay? And sometimes the language in which you use to write this fails you to be able to describe something to the exact digit in a manner in which there is no subject of interpretation, okay? So in the way we govern the law, even in the United States and so on, there is what is called the spirit of the law. Yeah? There is the literal translation of what the law says, but there is also what they call the spirit of the law. That is why you have heard many times when the judge has got discretion, okay, in which to interpret a particular way. And that discretion is not like this. There is a little sliver where you have discretion. The spirit of these things that we put in there was to help us govern an institution so that it operates properly. Okay? Now, in doing so, the objective of you miss a meeting 3 times is not to get rid of members. Okay? This is an organization which is a voluntary organization. So if a member misses a meeting and maybe they forgot to give an apology, it would be completely unacceptable for me to, okay, now you are out. I would not be building.
How do you forget to give an apology for 3 occasions?
You know,
how possible is that?
I'm coming to that. I'm saying that our colleagues and myself agreed that the spirit of what was trying to do is to give people time to heal.
Yep.
Okay? Now, if I made that mistake, I would apologize. No, but I have told you I've been in UNIP and I've been in MMD. When people are intolerant and you want to execute the law exactly to the letter of the law without any compassion, okay, what you do is that you break a party. You break a party. The reasons why I was lenient and others blamed me, was we thought that maybe people were genuinely hurting because they lost an election. Okay? And so, but if I made that mistake, I would apologize to the members of the Zambian UNZA party, because then I am a party that I've allowed this matter to fester to the extent that it has come where people are now disturbing us when it's just 6 weeks before the election.
It makes no difference.
Yeah.
You did not act.
Yeah.
And yet your colleagues have acted.
It has festered. Now, I am a believer in the law, okay, and in the spirit of the law. If I make a mistake as SG, if I have made any mistake, if the majority of my colleagues wants to charge me and remove me as SG, okay, I will comply if they follow the procedures that are laid down in the Constitution. I cannot say no. If today my colleague says, Mr. Lungu, you made this mistake, we're now going to charge you, I cannot deny that, okay? But if they jump this, I have to defend the ideal and the principle for which I have sacrificed for the last 2-3 years to bring this thing to the thing. And even what I'm doing is in defense. Because if you are telling me that myself, Dr. Simbao, Dr. Ponga should just lie down and so on, it would be a dereliction of duty. It would be a betrayal to the Constitution we all signed. It would be a failure of leadership to the membership of the Zambia we want, who had an idea.
What will happen now? We've got 4 months before the general election. Already the names have not been changed at the registrar of societies, as we've mentioned.
Yes.
So you are leaders. You've got a presidential candidate, Honorable Kapemba Simbao, and the others who are more like just on paper, you know, or by pronunciations.
No.
But when you go to the registrar of societies, what will happen?
Well, of course.
Don't you think that you've given this has given birth for some legal deliberations ahead of the elections?
Yeah, well, look, let me answer it in 3 ways. Please remind me. The first of all is that you know that there is an ongoing situation regarding the registrar of society in almost all the political parties right now. You know that, huh? You recall that even in the Socialist Party, they had a problem in which there was some accusation that someone was trying to change names. In UNIP today, the person who won and who is president of UNIP, Trevor Mwamba, some other people tried to change the names at the registrar of society. The FDD just wrote a letter just the other day where somebody took a letter to the registrar of trying to play Mingalato. The PF, as you know, so all of those issues, there is an external hand, just like in this particular case, clearly there's an external hand to it to try and create destabilization. So that is one about.
Where is it coming from?
No, I think that's very clear. Okay, let me come back to it so that I don't...
No, just answer because time is not with us. External hand, where is it coming from?
It is coming from the party that is in government. And they have said it. Mr. Cornelius Mwita issued a statement that if the opposition come together in the alliance, what will happen? We will now resort to Mingalato. That's what he said. I'm quoting him. Verbatim. Okay? So that is admittance. If you recall, there was a particular moment in which the special assistant for the president, my young brother, let me say Valevi Ngoma, and the I think it was the PS of Home Affairs, were caught on discussion where they were discussing the registrar of society and how they were going to ensure that someone is disadvantaged. You recall?
I recall that audio, but it can't be proved whether it was Living Ngoma's voice or actual Living Ngoma in that voice or not. So
I think
that is subject for further investigations.
Yes, of course. Denial, as I said to you, denial is the most predictable of all human responses. It's to deny. Okay? And yes, there is AI. Maybe it's true, but I'm just saying what was reported. I didn't accuse. I said there was an audio. And look, when there was a convention by the PF, which was held by our brother Mao Sampa, it was on a weekend where the registrar of society don't work. There was police guarding him, and the registrar was changed. So those are not issues which, if you want us to dismiss them, I will be prepared to accept. Right. But these are issues. So there is the issue of the registrar of society. That is one. But the second issue is this, okay? And that is in terms of alliances, the question you've asked this 4 months, how do you? So I want to take you to Article 81. Right. Yeah, because for us in the Zambia we want, this is our document. We have even promised in our manifesto that should we be given the opportunity to govern, one of the things that we're going to do is to ensure that the Constitution is redone, as even in wars that we are saying for the Fourth Republic.
Article what?
Yeah, Article 81. Article 81. Article 81. I think
where is it?
It's on page, near the end, it's on page 77.
Okay.
Maybe I can even ask you to read it.
81.
81. Start with 81.1. Yeah, alliances. What does it read?
81, which says the party may enter into alliances with other political parties on such terms and conditions as shall be determined by the National Leadership Council.
Okay.
On number 2 there, it says, in the event that the party enters into an alliance, the party may, through a decision of the National Leadership Council, resolve to support a presidential candidate and or a running mate from another political party for an election for president and or vice president of the Republican.
You can see that it's very clear that not only are we speaking as Zambia we want from the top of our brain, it is in the Constitution, you know, and majority of us believed in these alliances so much that we put it in the Constitution to the extent that we were prepared to ensure that even the flag bearer we had chosen was going to stand down if there was a better candidate. Now,
were the members engaged? I want us to quickly utilize the I think let's say 5 minutes remaining, then we go to another subject. Okay. Were the members engaged? I mean, you were more like in the forefront of engaging other political parties, you yourself and the others, but were you giving feedback, the minutes to your general membership?
Yes.
This is where we are, gentlemen.
That is right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is what has brought confusion amongst your members.
Yeah, because
they feel that you've been dragging the party, you can drag the party to whichever political party you feel like, or whichever direction you feel like.
Okay, so first of all, let me just reread this.
Yes.
The first part says the party may enter into alliances with other political parties on such terms as condition as shall be determined by the National Leadership Council. So the one who makes this decision is the Leadership Council. It's not Mahabi Lungu, Kapemba Simbao, or the doc. It's the Leadership Council. Okay. The second part says that we will have to make a decision if necessary for our leader to stand down in order to support somebody else. You cannot make these decisions brazenly without going to the National Leadership Council. And the reasons that they are complaining that it was not done is, as I told you, they have not been attending meetings. How do you know what is happening in meetings if you've been refusing to go to the meetings? There were several meetings being held to discuss matters of alliances at every stage. At every stage. So even with the issue of UNZA and the Council of Elders, there was a National Leadership Council meeting which was called with documentations which had already been drafted by our colleagues. The minimum program which we signed there, which I had hoped we would have been discussing this, the social contract that the Alliance eventually signed and wants to be signing sub-social contracts with other interested political parties. And there was a meeting, there was a full quorum, there was a discussion, and there was an approval from the National Leadership Council APE's constitution. In fact, the documents were signed in the presence of members of the National Executive Councils, and there are minutes to that effect.
Right.
These colleagues that have, in fact, 3 of the colleagues that have signed this were actually in that meeting. I can mention names, but for now I will leave it. Furthermore to that, when we went to the conference, which was taking place under the auspices of the Council of Elders, who asked Niels Mtani from Center for Policy Dialogue to organize it, 3 of the delegates that have signed here were delegates at the convention. And they were there for 2 days that they were there, and they even voted. Okay, and they never raised this issue that they were not consulted. They came. I didn't chain them to come to the conference, and I didn't chain him to stay for the conference. Okay, I didn't. Honorable Bet Mushala, Makulu Koni, and Mr. Kalua. They were delegates there, and then for them to then turn around and say they signed that they were not consulted is very unfair to me. You know. It is very, and I've taken it extremely personal, but I will forgive.
Right.
But it is extremely unfair to me, who put him on the list, even though we knew that some of them were not going to support Simbao. That they would be, some of them would be so petty as to try and destroy Simbao as a delegate with other political parties. And if some of those colleagues had voted for him, okay, one of the delegates actually spoiled the vote, and he was confronted by others later, because I think someone saw him. You know, that is deliberately spoiling a vote for your president. And if that had not happened, we might have even won in the first round. Now, that is, in my view, you can call it what it is, very, very sad and disappointing. And such characteristic behavior is really sad for me.
How are you approaching this year's elections coming up shortly? The Zambia we want.
No,
okay. The Zambia we want.
Yes.
How are you approaching this year's elections? With all this confusion, are you going for an election merely to exercise, your academic rights as a way of participating, or you are going for this election to win? Not long ago, you had another election which elected Hon Simbao as a presidential candidate, and again you were elected as a SG at that alliance. After you appeared before the Council of Elders. When you look at the names, for example, yourself, Hon Kapemba Simbao, there's also Sakiba Skota, there's also, you brought in a new, whom I can call a new entrant in politics, in Yusuf Dodia. Can this team really, deliver victory against the UPND come 2026 this year?
Okay.
It looks like a lukewarm kind of a team.
No, how can you call it a lukewarm?
I said it looks like.
Okay, okay. Let me say this, IP. First of all, okay, and I'll be very quick. the alliance had made a decision that whoever emerges the winner of these elections, all of us, the alliance, will use for the presidency the party in which that candidate is coming from. Okay? And as of now, the UNZA Alliance for the Fourth Republic is supposed to be supporting Kapemba Simbao under the Zambian We Want. Okay? But because of what our colleagues have done and their refusal to change the office bearer, we obviously cannot stand on the Zambia We Want. So the Secretary General of the Zambia We Want, who wants to stand either in Undazi Central or in Lusaka Central, I haven't fully decided, will not be able to stand on my ticket because my colleagues have refused to change office bearers because they have a grievance that I want. Right. Okay? You can understand how injurious that is. Okay? Kapemba Simbao will not be able to stand on the Zambia We Want, because our colleagues have decided that they will not comply because they lost an election. So as a result, the UNZA Alliance has decided that we will decide on SPV. So in this particular case, Kapemba Simbao may stand either on the New Heritage Party or on the UNIP ticket or on the LP ticket for where there is no dispute. Now that I've said this, you might find that tomorrow they've gone for those political parties because President HH doesn't want any credible candidate to stand against him. So that is the unfortunate part of it. I'm not saying that...
Where does HH comes into the story? Your own internal issues, how does HH jumps into that?
The Registrar of Society is part of government. And the head of state invariably is responsible for what happens in government. You can try to disassociate yourself from these issues. Today I was being told that a young lady called from a radio station and said to me, oh no, President HH has issued a statement to say that the police should investigate before they arrest. Now he's been saying that for the last 3 years, and yet the police keep on doing it. We are made to understand that the IG reports to him. Now, if I keep on telling people, my neighbors, for example, my child is being a nuisance in the neighborhood, stealing people's things and breaking people's gates, and when they complain to me, I keep on saying, oh no, me, I've told my son he should not do it. Oh, mwana wangu nemuuja kuti yai aleke. But the son keeps on doing it every day and I do nothing. What do you think the neighbors will say? Huh? It is you who is telling this child to doing it, and we are not children. So it's the same analogy that I'm giving. But let me go to the issue you used about lukewarm. Look, and again, I'm very serious. Kapemba Simbao as a candidate is the most experienced candidate out of all of the candidates that are coming. He has been minister or deputy minister for 7 ministries. Okay? And he has been in charge of 3 full cabinet portfolios under 3 different presidents, Arabi, Mwanawasa, and Lungu. He held the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Transport and Communication, and Works and Supply. All of these have got big contracts. You will have never heard that Kapemba Simbao knew where the procurement department was. Right. And that is an individual with experience, with cleanliness, okay, and a listener. How can you say that he's lukewarm? If you compare him to some of the candidates that are pushing themselves for candidates, they've never been in government, they've never run anything. He was a plant manager at Zamefa, the Zambia Metal Fabricators, for 18 years. And he worked, at the end of the day, he went home with the salary, government salary, not thing. I think that it is time that Zambians begin to look at the credentials and the experience of a person and evaluate them on those, not what people say. Zambians seems to get excited with someone like me who talks and talks and talks and talks some more. But if a person is quiet and listens to others but does the things that are required to do, we say, no. What do we want? A liar? So I can tell you, we have got a good candidate, we have got very good people. Dodia, Yusuf Dodia, he's been a businessman. All of you know him. He has been a commentator on the economy. He's a very sharp man, and he's an independent who's never been in politics. The delegates chose him that we want you to be a running mate, a clean guy. Okay? What better ticket could there be? If you investigate me, if you investigate Chishalagateka, if you investigate Sakiwa Shkota, and some of our colleagues there, you will not find that we have been found wanting by the law in terms of stealing. Is that not what the Zambian people want? What do they want? A thief. And I'm not saying, and I'm not referring to any individual.
So we leave that question to the viewers out there. But let's get into another segment, which will be our last segment.
Okay.
Now, in the last 48 hours, irate students at the University of Zambia, UNZA, have been on the street protesting against, among other issues, poor sanitary condition and the death of their fellow student who drowned in an open pit. The Zambian government, through Republican President Hakainde Hichilema, on Tuesday called for an emergency meeting to deliberate on the concerns and subsequently ordered the authorities to immediately rectify the problem. Now, our news team earlier today went on the street to compile a story regarding the grievances at the University of Zambia, and this is how it looks like.
Of learning on time. This is because the deceased died after accidentally falling and drowning in a water-filled pit that is meant to address the sewer challenges at the institution. Filled with grief, the angry students took to the Greatest Road and blocked traffic in a desperate bid to draw attention to the dire water sanitation crisis on campus, as well as the death of their fellow student, which they said was preventable if the authorities did not fail to address the issue. Police officers were swiftly deployed to the scene, but the determined students refused to disperse, demanding immediate action from the university management. Speaking in an interview with KBN TV News, some students are calling on the university administration and other relevant authorities to immediately address the issue, saying that they do not want to lose another life in a similar manner.
Yesterday we saw our young brother Emmanuel Walia lose his life at a construction site right there in campus. So students are not happy, and really what we want is we do not want to lose another life before we have the sanitation work done.
That is suitable for everyone. If they are able to be cleaning these pipes, these sewer pipes each and every day, it is okay, as long as the student is learning in a clean environment. That's all that we ask for. Nothing more, nothing less. But if they keep on unclogging today, it's an urgent matter. They unclog today and we are still working under that same environment. If they are unclogging that and it bursts out, what happens? Everywhere it's now a mess.
And the Zambia police have identified the deceased as Emmanuel Walia, aged 18, a second-year student in the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, and confirmed that the incident happened around 21 hours within UNZA premises.
The Zambia Police Service in Lusaka has recorded a case of sudden and unnatural death involving a student from the University of Zambia. The incident occurred on March 31, 2026, around 21 hours within the University of Zambia premises. The deceased has been identified as Emmanuel Walia, aged 18, a second-year student in the School of Humanities. Preliminary investigations suggest that he accidentally fell into an open pit with water and subsequently drowned. He was retrieved from the pit by the Zambia National Service personnel and rushed to Levi Mwanawasa University Teaching Hospital, where he was pronounced dead upon arrival.
And the Zambia National Student Union President Innocent Chendano has called on stakeholders to quickly address the issues occurring at the university.
We are assured that when the students close, they will ensure that pipes are being changed, and these are the lasting solutions to the issue of fire. Let me take this opportunity to call upon all stakeholders to come on board, from the corporate and many others, to join in and help the situation improve.
Meanwhile, Ministry of Education Permanent Secretary Technical Services Dr. Kelvin Mambwe visited the university to express government's grief on the loss of the student, which he says should never have happened, and that going forward, government will ensure that the learning environment is both safe and conducive for students. Dr. Mambwe also disclosed that 23 million has since been released today by government through the orders of President Hakainde Hichilema to address the water and sanitation challenges at UNZA.
Going forward, we must do something to ensure that the institution, the learning environment is safe. The learning environment is conducive for you to be able to go to class be able to study, come back to your room and cook, take a bath.
As investigations into the incident continues, students remain on edge, insisting that urgent and lasting solutions must.
That's a story compiled by Elizabeth Kayombo, one of our reporters. We are in the dying minutes of the program, and I have in the studio Honorable Mahabi Lungu, the Secretary General of the Zambia We Want. Honorable SG, your quick take over the happenings at the highest learning institution in Zambia, tertiary level, that's UNZA, which houses over 30,000 students, both local and abroad. First of all, we have lost a life, and not only that, but students are not also happy in terms of how the sanitary condition looks like. How did we get here, and what could be the way forward? Two questions to go.
I think that, if I was mischievous and if I wanted to dramatize the situation, I would have said some very injurious things about the sewerage nature of the problems that we deal. But because there's a life that has been lost, and because I like to be serious in matters of this nature and not exaggerating things, I will be moderate. But in my moderation, I want to remind the viewers that the UPND government and my older brother, the president, is fond of saying when they do something great that it has never been done before in the history of Zambia. Even when you are comparing oranges to apples, they say it has never been done before. I can assure you that I have never heard such a thing happen in the entire history of the University of Zambia, that a student has died and lost their life because of a sewerage situation, which is as a result of either lack of funding or incompetence by administration, or lack of knowledge by the administration, which says that each minister of higher education or health will be a stellar performer in which there is some form of peer review. You cannot allow to have a situation escalate to this level and the government not be aware that there is a situation there at UNZA. Yet, just a few weeks ago, the UPND government were paying students to go and support the great fixer that they have been the most successful in the history of Zambia. Here is a situation which has indicated to you that all of these fictitious ululations of your greatness has come to nothing. A student has lost a life. I've seen pictures where students are walking in a terrible situation. It has never been like this in the history of the University of Zambia. And yet we have in government people who say they are managers. I mean, this is a reflection and a microcosm of what is happening in this country. And when the Lord so desires, things like this will explode in their faces just before election to show you that the public relations that you are putting up as a facade can be broken and the real things will be shown. In mining, in the cost of living, okay? In the way students are being treated. So, for me, that is what I can say. I think it's a tragedy.
The money has been released. I'm told the
Yes.
government has released about 23 million.
Yeah, the whole essence of a government that claims to be managers is that you plan and you release money in time. So something that is done and it doesn't come to you as an emergency. Let me give you an example of Lundazi. I know we're in the dying minutes on. A couple of years ago, the president in his ministerial, I think it was the national, the whatever address in Parliament, proudly and boldly said that this year there will be funding for the Lundazi-Chipata Road. I come from Lundazi, so I'm speaking on behalf of Lundazi-Chipata Road. And subsequently there was funding, okay, in the budget at least provided. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. And this year it will be done. I was recently in Lundazi. It is a terrible road. You know, the same patch which they've been doing for the last 3 years. A promise so boldly made on national television has come to zero. And this is not only for Lundazi. I know that there are pictures of roads being done in Chavuma, in Sensele, I know of things that were undertaken by the government 5 years ago, which have never been done, and you are now, as I said, 6 weeks or 7 weeks before Parliament is dissolved. In Bauleni, they have had no water in Bauleni for 2 years. They used to have water, some water. They've had no water in Bauleni for 2 years. Now that we are approaching the elections, they are doing everything possible to reconnect water. They are digging roads. I drove the other day. People are sweating to ensure. Because what? Because in 6 weeks there will be elections, so they can say, we've delivered. The Zambian people must be able to show us politicians that they are no longer going to be convinced by things that are going to be done last minute, or when there's a problem, that's when you release money. That is not managing an economy. That is placing a bandage. It is not dealing with the cause of the disease. It is dealing with the symptoms last minute. And so they should not claim that they've got the capacity to govern when they don't have.
Which of the two constituencies, Lundazi or Lusaka Central, are you going
I'm not
for?
sure, but one of the two I'm going to stand.
Between Lusaka?
Between Lusaka Central and I haven't seen the delimitation. I have been told that Lundazi Central is being delimitated. So I want to make sure whether there is an opportunity there. But as you know, I've stood twice in Lusaka Central. Once as an independent, and once on the MMD ticket, and I was second to Guy Scott in 2011, which is now 15 years ago. So I want to give it another try. So I'm gravitating towards Lusaka Central. I think that given my experience in government, I think that I will be a very effective representative of either of the constituency. But I will announce shortly. And thank you for asking me.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. How come you want to find an opportunity for a delimitation into an exercise so under Bill 7, which you opposed yourself?
Yeah, you see,
how possible that Bill 7 results have become fruitful now?
No, it is not. It is not that they have become fruitful. When you are about to legislate, and you are on two sides of the argument, once something becomes law, I cannot say that I will disobey it. So for example, we are debating on whether CDF should be increased to a particular. No, maybe that is not a good a good example. But in all stands, if we say that the law requires that from now on, when you are going to register your vehicle, you must pay a 20% fee for. That will go to the police. I can argue all I want that I shouldn't want this.
Right.
The minute it becomes law, I am compelled to follow the law. Okay? Right. So, and this is one of the reasons why I was arguing this, because when you all agree to something and you've agreed on the rules, you can't say that, no, because they've passed me, I will live my own law. Then you are not a believer. So I was against this. I still think it's a bad thing that you can be, really, as I said, you can be 7 weeks from the solution of Parliament, and we don't know.
Right.
But it's law, and I have to follow the law.
Honorable SG, thank you so much for coming through the program.
I'm very grateful that you're calling me SG, as I am. As is Dr. Simbao, the president, and as Dr. Ponga is chair of the party.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
All right, I've been speaking to the Secretary General of the Zambia We Want, Honorable Mahabi Lungu. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week on Wednesday. May God bless Zambia. May God bless Mother Africa. Good night.